SAX DMA?
That's correct, John.
Explain to us how a dad, an entrepreneur, a guy from Brooklyn ends up fighting hunger and feeding children in the Philippines his life mission.
That's an interesting question, right? This is a new endeavor for me. Well, I was originally in the Philippines for the first time 2 years ago. It was a random Tinder date. It was just the most random thing in the world. And whenever
online dating, Tinder.
Online dating, yes. I don't know if you want to hear that story.
Hey, listen, it got you to where you are, right?
Should we just go start from the recording studio?
Start from the recording studio.
Okay, so I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I moved here in 1989. Eventually, long story short, whenever I turned to 27, I started working for Jive Records. Jive Records, my first album was the Low End Theory album by Tribe Called Quest. I was working on those albums there back in '93, actually. And I was working for a record company, and I was like, I don't like the corporate environment. I have a rock band. I want to be in a recording studio, but I never even seen a recording studio, But I knew that there was, it's New York City, so there's many recording studios in the area. And I was like, well, I was a father at the time, and I couldn't afford to be an intern. And so I was asking the record label, well, how do you work at a recording studio and make money? Because I need to make money. And they're like, well, you can be a technician. And I'm like, what do they do? And they're like, well, they fix things. I'm like, oh, that's awesome, because my bass player is a technician, and I'll just take his resume, put my name on it, and submit it to this studio called Quad Studios, right? So
this is very resourceful, by the way.
Well, I'm a firm believer in, if somebody ever asks you, presents you with an opportunity, and you don't know how to do it, you say yes, and you figure it out as you go along. Well, sometimes you just got to create your own opportunities, right? So I took this resume, and he was 30 years older than me, so he had 27 years of experience. I was 27 years old at the time, and I gave them this resume, and they're like, you know all of this? I'm like, hell yeah. They're like, is the pay okay? I didn't even know what the pay was. I'm like, pay's fine. They're like, when can you start? I'm like, I can start now. And they're like, we got to get this guy. We got to hire this guy. So they hired me. Mind you, and this is for Quad Recording Studios, just in case, a little backstory on Quad. That's the studio where Tupac had gotten shot at, So there's 3 world-famous recording studios. There's Abbey Road because of the Beatles, Electric Lady because of Jimi Hendrix, and Quad Studios because of Tupac, right? After he got shot there, it became the mecca for hip-hop and R&B. So every artist who's anybody in the hip-hop and R&B field was working there in a 6-studio facility. Well, they assumed that I knew all this knowledge. They gave me a week with the head tech to just catch up with what they had, and I was lost. This is back in the 90s, before computers, whenever there's actual recording gear, And this guy...
You're cutting tape.
Cutting tape, recording on analog gear, using analog equipment. It was just, I'd never even seen this stuff before, And my boss's name was Bill Ring, and he was just a mean guy. He didn't like you, he didn't like me, he didn't like himself, and he could just see right through me. He knew that I did not know anything about this stuff. And he would just explain this in the loftiest terms because he was a men's, he was a genius, And this is what I had to deal with. I'd be like, oh my God, the third day, I'm like, Bill, can you please explain the 10-kilometer adjustment on the MTR 90?
How did you make 3 days?
This was just my training, and I was just trying to take down notes that looked like chicken scratch. That didn't even make any sense to me. And I'd ask him a question. He'd be like, did I explain this to you on your first day? And I was like, oh, my God. So they put me on the night shift by myself, and quickly they realized that I didn't know what I was doing because I was just failing at everything. The sessions would have to be called because I didn't even know how to hook up a microphone, And they're like, we got to replace this guy, So, and I knew they were going to do that, and I saw it coming. So I had to be resourceful. So I started hanging out in the lobby on the 10th floor at the reception area. And eventually I became a teacher and a mentor in the recording industry. And this is one of the biggest lessons I taught my students. So I would hang out on the 10th floor at the reception area. Anybody that walked off the elevator, you know what the artists look like, but you might not know what the producers look like, the management, the A&R, the record label people. You don't know who's going to walk in through those doors. So I immediately would stand up like, hello, my name is Sax. Where can I help you?
Pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. What floor are you going to? And they would tell me 6th floor, 8th floor, and I'd say, can we check this person? Because it was security. Can we check this person in? Okay, and then I'd get in the elevator with you, right? And now we have this awkward moment where now we're face-to-face and we have a few silent moments.
That's a moment of opportunity.
Exactly. And then they eventually, inevitably would ask me, what do you do here? And I'm like, I play guitar. And they would ask me, are you any good? I'd say, I'm the best. Once again, I'm not the best, but I played a pretty good guitar, And that's how I started picking up guitar gigs, here and there at the studio. Well, one day, it was dead at the studio, and this really short, chubby black girl comes off the elevator and jump up, what's up, Mom? And I grab her forehead and I kiss her and I go, what's your name? And she goes, Melissa. I'm like, what are you here to see, Melissa? And she's like, I'm here for the 6th floor. I'm like, call down to the 6th floor and see if Melissa can go down there. They're like, yeah, she could go down there. So I get in the elevator with her, and she's like, what do you do here? And I'm like, I make sure you have a good time. And she's like, you're crazy. I'm like, yeah, I heard that before. So she comes in the next day, but the next day the floor is filled with people, right? The floor is packed. And I'm like, Melissa! And I run across the floor and I grab her face, give her a kiss. I'm like, give me the keys to 6. Me and Melissa are going down to 6. And everybody freezes. And I get in the elevator with her and she goes, what do you really do here? And I'm like, well, I play guitar. She's like, come down in 30 minutes and talk to me. I'm like, bet. So I get upstairs and everybody's like, how do you know Missy Elliott? I'm like, that was Missy Elliott?
Wow.
I'm like, that was Missy Elliott? You kidding me? All right, I can tell you something. I did get nervous at that point, because I was like, I have no clue, right? So
You didn't have VH1?
I lived in a recording studio.
Yeah.
I was homeless. I was so dedicated to my craft. I was homeless for 6 months. I did not watch TV. I didn't have time to watch TV. I lived at the studio in case any opportunity came up. I was there. And that's how you succeeded in this industry. I've got 1 platinum album, 5 gold albums. I've worked with every major hip hop and R&B artist in the late '90s you can name.
So when did you finally feel like I have done everything I can possibly do here, and it's time to look for the next thing?
Eventually, I not only did I was one of the most successful maintenance technicians in the studio. I eventually produced, eventually engineered, and eventually managed the facility as well for the last 2 years. After those last 2, and I thought that managing the facility was going to be like the ultimate, and then I realized that I was just chasing a bunch of artists around for money, and I became disillusioned. So I was like, I think it's time to move on here, So I left that and went to nightlife for a few years, produced some amazing parties in New York City. Back in 2016, I was called. This segues into the Fight Hunger with Hunger thing. There was an artist that was in Miami, and she knew of my work in New York City, and she says, I want to hire you for a gig. I want you to produce a subgenre of trap music with rock guitars and build my private recording studio. So understand, I'm coming from New York City. I'm on top of the world, my ego is inflated. I'm up here, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go to Miami. And they put me in the most beautiful condo in Midtown Miami, and I didn't know anybody there, And so I did this album for her and built this studio, and I became very depressed because I was just like everything I had in New York City, it just did not exist there, and I became very, very, very depressed. And so I was like, I never was one for Tinder or like online dating, so let me try this Tinder thing, right? So I meet this Philippine model in Orlando, and I'm in Miami, and we just immediately start having a phone conversation, which was foreign to me. I'm like, I never used the phone before, and I was awkward, I never talked on the phone for like who knows how many years.
And you recognize too, we live in a day and age of catfishing and this 90-day fiance, and
yeah.
I assume that you had suspicions.
Well, I just wanted to meet somebody, to be honest with you, at that point, And she was like, well, but we were never able actually to physically meet. Like anytime I tried to get a car to go up there, something went wrong. It just didn't work out. But we maintained a phone conversation, right? Eventually, she had to leave, and she was like, well, I'm going to go to New York City, but I don't know anybody. I'm like, well, you're talking to the right person. You're a model. I introduced her to 3 photographers, a small group of friends. She got up there. She had a blast. She's like, dude, you're the man up here. I'm like, yes, I know. And but before she had left, she had gotten pickpocketed in the airport, and she lost her passport. I don't know how she was able to travel, but she had lost her passport, right? So she goes to New York, and eventually she goes back to the Philippines. Well, I literally have 2 more days in Miami, and I'm ready to return back to New York City, And
anyway, that was the plan.
That was the plan. And I'm not even in Miami at this particular moment. I'm in a place called Homestead, which is about an hour south of Miami, in this random city, right? And my phone rings, and it's from the Philippines, and it's her. And I'm like, hey, how are you? She's like, are you still in Miami by any chance? I'm like, yes. She's like, do you happen to know where this post office is? And I'm like, I'm looking right at it. I'm right in front of it. And she's like, my passport is there. Can you please get it for me? I'm like, yes, that's crazy, So I go, and she calls and says, hey, this guy's going to pick up my passport. So I get the passport. 2 days later, I go to New York. I'm like, of course I'm going to FedEx it to you. No problem. She's like, dude, you're the coolest guy in the world. If you ever want to come out here, you let me know. I'm like, I'm booking my ticket now. Like, I've never been out the country before. Well, I was in the country.
So she's home. She's in the Philippines.
Yeah, she's in the Philippines, And so I booked my ticket. A few weeks later, I'm going out there and stuff, So I go out there. And I thought, I've never been outside the country. And I'm like, I'm thinking Philippines. It's Asia, right? So it's going to be this Asian country and like really mysterious and like cool. And I was in Manila, and it was just disgusting. It was gross. It looked like Jamaica Queens on a bad day. It was like really horrible. I was like, man, I really hope we get along because I'm ready to go back home. This is just depressing, this town, And well, we met up. We hit it off great. She stayed with me the whole 6 days I was there and showed me around and everything. And I was just destroyed. I was just I was destroyed. My soul was destroyed by seeing the amount of poverty there in this country, and it was I mean, it's everywhere you go. I mean, children, they're just like living. I don't even know how they're living, you know. And you know, she had told me that, you know, what she does is she does these things called feedings. Like, she'll scrape up a little bit of money and put together, you know, a little thing and food, and they get somebody to prepare the food, and she'll go to these communities and feed these children. And I'm like, man, that's like a really cool idea, you know. And she was like, hey, would you like to start a nonprofit with me? And I'm like, well, I would like to, but I don't really think you understand how much of a responsibility that is. But it put the idea in my mind, you know, like, man, it would probably be pretty awesome to be partnered up with a nonprofit out here, you know, because I could really see
How quickly after landing in Manila did you realize that there was a need for intervention?
It was probably the next day, because it's just literally everywhere.
It's prevalent.
It's insane. It's really bad. Yeah, it's like this from what I hear all over the world. You know, it's not just the Philippines. You know, but
we'll talk more about that.
Yeah. So I had this idea of this nonprofit in my head, and I'm like, man, you know, I meditate a lot. I visualize. You know, I visualize.
Tell us a little bit about that, because I happen to know I have people in my life who consider meditation integral. I mean, absolutely 100% necessary, and almost look at people who don't do it, like myself, I admit it. I do a little yoga, but I don't meditate. And my mother-in-law looks at me like I am waking up every day at a deficit by not meditating. You notice a difference?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And
absolutely.
what would someone like me notice?
Well, first of all, there's many,
because it's obviously important if you brought it up.
Absolutely. There's many different ways. There's many different reasons. The first method I was exposed to was I used to be a martial arts instructor whenever I was younger, and we used to meditate before and after class. And, you know, that's a meditation to, like, kind of just calm your blood pressure down and kind of focus on your moves and stuff like that. But what I've evolved into is, there's a book by Shakti Gawain. It's called Creative Visualization. And check it out. I'm speaking into this microphone right here. You're speaking into you have a computer in front of you. You have something on your wrists and stuff. Like, everything we can touch, everything in this world, that is tangible. It started out as someone's idea, right? Everything started as someone's idea until they put enough energy behind it, enough work behind it, till it manifested itself into the physical world. Follow me? So, if you want to accomplish something in your life, you can meditate, visualize, plant the seed, plant that same seed that gave birth to all these things in your mind, put it out there, and put work behind there. And it's almost like you're hacking the system, because I don't want to get into quantum physics, but there's a really, you know, there's a fine line between things just happening and you making things happen. You know, I've been doing this system since the early '90s, and you might call it coincidence, but whenever you have enough coincidences in your life, you kind of, like, I don't care what you label it as, I don't care what you might call it, I don't care what other people call it. I found enough coincidences in my life to prove to myself that if I apply this method, I can accomplish certain things.
So what discipline is it? Is it TM?
Well, no. That's transcendental meditation, for those who don't know what that is.
That's the expensive one.
That is the expensive one, and that's a cult. Come at me. Whatever. I just don't, I don't believe in that system. My system, I originally started out was the Silva mind control method, and you can look that up. It was created by Dr. Jose Silva, but there's another person out there named Shakti Gawain who wrote this book called Creative Visualization, and it's along the similar lines. Now, some people at this point are like, oh, it's like The Secret by Oprah. Right, well, it's the same principle, but what Oprah, and I never read The Secret because I don't believe in pop culture.
Wait a second. You worked in a studio where Tupac got killed.
Yeah, I didn't even know I was kissing Missy Elliott on her forehead either.
Fair enough.
So, but from what I do hear, that the problem with The Secret is that it doesn't really emphasis putting the work behind it. I mean, like, okay, I'm going to sit here and visualize I'm a millionaire. Well, okay, well, what are you doing to make those steps possible? You know, and you got to be careful what you wish for, because I'm telling you, this is strong. You might wish for $1 million to fall in your lap, but are you prepared to get hit by a bus and enter a lawsuit and not be able to walk for the rest of your life?
My brother-in-law hit me with an old Asian proverb. It was a story, could be better, could be worse. And basically, every misfortune that you're handed in this fable is balanced out by some prosperity. And then as soon as you prosper, you're hit with reality again. So life is a balance. So Maybe you're saying meditation will help you with that balance?
Well, I mean, that balance is equanimity, and that's what the 0 points on my wrist over here represent. It's equanimity, where you do find that balance. You don't get too excited, you don't get too depressed or anything like that. But that's your own call. How you decide, how you choose to look at a situation makes all the difference. I mean, your reality is your reality. Whether something is true does not matter. If you put enough energy and you believe it's true, then it is true until you make it come true. Right?
So you are now in the Philippines. You are meditating, and you have the seed has been planted, as you would say, for creating a nonprofit to feed these children in Manila that so desperately need it.
100%.
As you would say, what is the first step to making that a reality?
Right on. You're right. And so while I was still in the Philippines, I started entering into my visualizations this concept of having a nonprofit. Right. 3 days later, I'm heading back home. I'm in the Manila airport. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's a very crowded place.
No, I have not.
There's me. I'm the only white guy. Well, there's this other white guy there who happens to stand in line behind me, and I'm like, hey man, this is the first time I'm going back to the States. Am I in the right space? I'm trying to get back to. And he's like, don't worry, you're on the same plane as me, no problem. So we start talking. His name was Lance Little, and he was the CEO of this nonprofit called Fight Hunger with Hunger, who fed children in the Philippines. I'm like, you got to be kidding me! You're the guy I've been looking for. So we played cards in Beijing at our layover and stuff, and we became close, and we kept in touch, and he was going back to the States to handle some business. I was going back to New York City to work this gig at the World Trade Center. But we kept in touch, and I would always keep an eye on his social media to see how things were going and everything like that. Right?
What year is this?
2006, late 2016, October. Really strange thing about the Philippines. Right now, they're starting to play Christmas music in all the stores in September.
And they celebrate it at the same time we do?
They do, but I do believe the economy is so bad. How we push it here right after Thanksgiving. They do it before.
A little extra.
A lot extra. Yeah.
A lot.
But anyway, that's just a nod.
Hey, listen, I hope that people who listen to this not only end up helping and donating to Fight Hunger with Hunger, and we'll obviously explain to them how that can be done and what is being done with that money. But I also hope they learn some stuff. You're an interesting guy, Sax.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
So don't let me interrupt you. Go. We're back. We are on a layover, and you're playing cards.
Well, we're past that point now, and I'm back in the States, and I'm observing Fight Hunger with Hunger's social media, and I'm watching their Instagram, and there was a little girl named Akisha, and Lance said, and what happened was there in a certain area in Las Piñas called the Cosme Compound, a little girl named Akisha, the mumps came and hit her village, and the medicine's not really good there, and I can't remember the medical term, but her tongue swelled out of her face. It was like this big out of her face, and he came across her like a year later. And he was like, look, I got to make a special announcement. We don't normally do this, but I've come across this little girl. Can you imagine what it's like? I employ you. If you're a girl a grown girl in the States, you've gone to your prom, you've had dates and stuff like that. This girl's never going to experience that. We got to do something for this girl, right? And it just broke my heart. I was just like, yes, and then I got really involved at that point. And I was like, look, we got to spread awareness for this little girl, and and he was trying to raise enough money for her operation to get this done. And it's not like here, oh, just take it to the hospital. I mean, they have to import a doctor and stuff because this is like a rare disease and stuff like that. And long story short, right in the nick of time, they were able to fight. The organization was able to find a corporate sponsor to take care of this operation for this little girl.
Do you recall who that was?
I do not. I do not. And so they everything was looking good, and they maybe we could post pictures of later.
Yeah, we'll put it up right now.
Right on. And so the operation went well, kind of, and then the doctor's going back. There was some excessive bleeding, and it was a really tense moment and stuff like that. And the doctors went to check on her. Everything was fine, and they turned around. 5 minutes later, she died. It took him a while. It took him a little bit of time to tell me this because of the gravity of the situation, and I immediately started crying whenever he told me this. It really killed me, and it really reminded me. You ever see Star Wars, the original Star Wars?
Sure.
You see the first part where there's the battle between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then Luke comes across the battle, And he looks at Darth Vader. He goes, "You strike me down when I become stronger. If you kill me now, I'm gonna become stronger than you could ever imagine." Like, kills him, and his spirit jumps into Luke, and that's just the way it felt for me. That's exactly how I felt.
This gave you the drive to really
Absolutely
fire up.
I needed to do something.
Yeah.
I know I needed to do something at that moment, and I dedicated myself, and my meditations, my visualizations went straight back to Asia, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I know I got to do something. And
so you reconnect with your friend from Fighting Hunger with Hunger.
Well,
by the way, their tagline, I love it: "Fighting injustice with just us."
Yeah, that's their line, just us, right? So we always kept in touch, but now it's getting a little bit more serious, you know? And especially after a moment like this, we get a little, more involved and stuff like that. And after a minute, I noticed that his social media just like kind of stopped. And I said, "Hey, is everything okay? What's going on?" It's like, well, volunteer kind of dropped out. That was taking care of that. We can't really do it. I'm like, "You mind if I take over?" Because I built up my workout IG to pretty well. I have an idea of how to handle this stuff. He goes, "By all means, please." So I dismantled it, and I restarted it, and I built up their followers for a nonprofit guerrilla tactics. I got over 1,000 followers. It's like, man, it's just really good. So I started, just getting, spreading the word here and there. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna find donations for this company. I'm gonna get them so many donations. We're gonna put the word out and everything. And I tried, and I was like, man, I realized how hard it was to get donations for these nonprofits. It's like impossible.
I mean, let's face it. There's a lot of competition.
Not only a lot of competition, but by law
and suspicion. People are very suspicious.
That's exactly it. And I'm glad you mentioned that because by law, a nonprofit only has to donate 5% of their proceeds towards
sinful.
The cause.
Absolutely sinful.
Well, Lance and Fighting Hunger with Hunger, they are a 100%. And we could prove that. I could back this up. We have it on the website, actually. 100% angel charity. Every penny that you give that's donated there goes directly to those kids. None of us got paid.
I'm listening. I give $50. Where does it go?
It goes straight into the mouths of the children in the Las Piñas area, a Talon 3 school district, and or the Hood program, whichever you specify.
Now, you were telling us off air a little bit more about the challenges. Let's face it. Again, there are challenges associated with raising money, and maybe you've splintered off and refocused energy. Tell us about the Hood program.
Could we get to?
Yeah.
So I realized that it was very hard to get donations for this, and then I started thinking. I put on my thinking cap, John, and I was like, "What if we got a farm? What if we got a farm, and grew the food, and then fed the kids? I mean, what the heck? That sounds like
in the Philippines.
In the Philippines, yeah. So I started meditating on that. 3 days seems to be the magic number. 3 days later, I get hit up by this woman, Ida Roque. God bless her. She was like, "Hey, I see what you're doing. I like what you're doing. I have a farm in the Philippines. I want to help." I'm like, "You have a farm. Can you please tell me how it's done? I need to know the mechanics of this. I'm trying to do this farm. I want to do this thing. I want to do this farm to raise this food, to feed these kids." She's like, "No, you don't understand. I want to give you half of my farm." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, I got 7 acres out here, and I've been trying to give away half of it to a nonprofit, and nobody's taking me serious." And I'm like, Yes, we want it. Yes, thank you so much. Let's do this. I'm totally down. Yeah, we're totally down. So put everybody in touch with each other, and it was like awesome, right? So my stint at the current job was kind of ending and stuff like that, and I was like, man, it would be great for me to go out there and thank her, just personally, and just kind of see how things are, to just go revisit the Philippines and stuff like that, right? So I'm talking to her. I'm like, I want to come out there and thank you, and I just want to reconnect with the charity and stuff like that. And a little bit maybe a couple weeks go by, she goes, "Hey, listen, I got picked up to be on this TV show out here in the Philippines, and what the government is trying to do is we're trying to upraise the image of the farmer, the Philippine farmer. So what they want to do is they want to fly me around to different farms and film and stuff like that. It's going to be on a public station, and would you want to be my co-host?" I'm like, "Absolutely. You kidding me? I'm down." Yeah. It'd be like the white American guy, the dangerously handsome white American guy with the beautiful.
Sax, by the way, you are you're a personal trainer.
Former personal trainer.
Physical fitness is important.
It very much is. And that's why I've started my new business, Motivational Consultation, that specializes in health and fitness. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that later. So this is the plan. So I'm going out there. I booked a trip for 10 days. I'm staying in a hotel in Makati. I was supposed to leave on a Thursday, and then Ida had told me, she's like, listen, we're supposed to meet with the radio station on Friday, you know? And I'm like, wow, I'm supposed to leave on Thursday. I don't know. Maybe I should. And I'm thinking, should I just take the chance and stay? You know, like, you know, I'm like, forget it. Let me just take the chance. Forget my plane ticket. I'm gonna go to meet the radio station, the TV station, and see what this is all about. So I missed my plane. I skipped my plane. This is 10 days into Manila, and I meet with the TV station, and they kind of threw us a curveball there, and it was like they explained the whole format of the TV show. Everything sounded great, and they're like, "Do you like it, Sir Sax?" And I'm like, "Yes, it sounds awesome." They're like, "Awesome, it'll be $5,000 per show." And I'm like, "That's what you're going to pay me?" Like, no, that's what.
Yeah, I know. I think I explained to you too. Unfortunately, that is not that uncommon.
Blew my mind.
Yeah.
The first time, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" You know. Well, I'd already missed my plane, and I was like, "Well, let me just see what's going on here a little bit deeper." You know. So, you know, I met the rest of the by the rest of the staff of Fight Hunger with Hunger, I mean, Lance Little's father. Lance is the CEO. His father is Joe Little, and he's the vice president of the company, Fight Hunger with Hunger. And then there's Keith Taylor, who's the chief financial officer of the company. That's pretty much the company right there, you know. And so, what they had already had in place was, for 2 consecutive years, they had fed children ages 5 and 6 in a school system called Talon Trace in Las Piñas for 2 years. And these are children that were diagnosed with malnutrition. And the first year was like, I think it was like 16 kids. The next year it was like in the number was in the 60s. So that was the thing that they were doing. And they made it known to me that the formative years for a child's brain to develop properly are ages 2 to 6. If a child doesn't receive proper nutrition between the ages of 2 and 6, they can suffer from a plethora of, like, you know, horrific, you know, consequences. Death is the worst case scenario, but, like, you know, their learning disabilities and just many other, like, complications can ensue if that child is not fed properly. So that's the target age that the charity, like, focused on. Now, I had shown up in the beginning of the summer, so there was no school in place at that time. So they were kind of just like, you know, just kind of waiting around for, you know, the school year to start. So in the meantime, I started volunteering my services with other nonprofits and getting a real glimpse of the horrific conditions that these children live in. One of the
and you're a dad, by the way, right?
I am a dad. Yes, I've
so
raised.
On a certain level, on a very basic level, you can empathize.
It really resonates with me, you know. And one of the organizations I volunteered with was Metro. They're actually located in Bushwick, New York, and they're massive. They're like, you know, whenever, like, Haiti got wiped out by a hurricane, they'd, like, helicopter and plane in, like, massive trucks and with feeding trucks with big kitchens on the back of them. They have, like, well-oiled, organized teams of people to cut up the food and prepare the food and go out there. And so to keep up their chops, what they do is they do these feedings in, like, the Philippines and stuff like that to keep them on their toes in practice, you know? So, like, you know,
For catastrophes,
yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, because it's like, check it out. I mean, like, so what I was thinking of is, like, man, these feedings are a good idea. It's really nice to have a feeding, right? On a Sunday. What about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday? You know, so I started thinking about that, right? So anyway, so we had with Metro, I'd gone to, like, you know, places like Tondo in the Philippines, and later looked it up and realized that these are, like, the top 5 worst living conditions in the world for children.
And you just by chance happened
to volunteer
through a Tinder correspondence, you ended up there.
Yes, basically, you know. So and that was, like, my first. Tondo was my first eye-opening experience to. It is bad. It's just how bad it can be out there. We were in. I broke down 4 times during that. So, you know, we had arranged to meet in this abandoned schoolyard, and that's when the trucks came in at like 6 a.m. We met there, and then all this food came in, and they prepared the food, and there was a fleet of 4x4 trucks that came, Ford trucks that came through, and we packed up the trucks, and then we were assigned to each truck to go dispatched into certain areas. We got dispatched into 4 areas. Tondo was one of them, and whenever I got to Tondo, I broke down 4 times. I cried 4 times, 4 individual times from, like, what I'd seen there. There was another program that went ahead of us, and what they do is they give out these tickets to these children, and they're like, "Hey, we want to teach you about Jesus and stuff," right? So they have this plays and
religious. Is it a religious? The Catholicism is
95%
opportunity there, and really.
Yeah, 95% people are Catholic in Manila and stuff like that, you know. So they have these plays and these demonstrations and to help teach kids morals and you know things like this and stuff like that. And at the end, we are there to come and we feed them, you know. So anybody who participated in checking out these,
But you're not a religious organization.
not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. And I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. So that was the deal. So then these kids would come, and I'm like, looking at these, I'm like with my coworkers, I'm like, this kid's like, this like a 3-year-old, he's totally naked. I'm like, how is he? What's going on? They're like, how's his parents let this kid run around naked? And like, well, he doesn't have any parents. He's feral. He's like a feral kid. It's like a wild child, you know, just living.
Who knew that was even? I got to be honest. I didn't even consider that was a thing.
It's.
I mean, I'm busy over here trying to save cats.
Right. Exactly.
In Bridgeport.
Absolutely, no doubt. You know, and it's but you know, and then I quickly realized there's no Section 8 over there. There's no WIC system. There's no food stamps. You're screwed, bro. You're
Sax, did you end up on TV?
Oh, by the way, no. They wanted me to pay for Yes, that didn't happen. That was. But it did.
Open your eyes.
It did make me miss my plane to stay there one more day. That made all the difference.
See,
you know?
everything is
no doubt
related.
Absolutely.
So, Sax, we have people listening. We're going to reach out to listeners in Bridgeport, Connecticut, out on Long Island, in Greenwich, Connecticut, which is a very philanthropic community. Why this organization? Why this particular part of the world?
Well, I can tell you that, like, I firsthand can personally tell you that it is a 100% donation model angel organization. That if you whatever amount of money you give, it is going towards that.
What is that term, model angel?
Well, there is Scott Harrison. There's a gentleman named Scott Harrison. He probably spearheads the largest angel organization. It's called Water. And it's a 100% donation model nonprofit. So, like, you know, and that's the big thing with him, and because what would benefit each of these organizations is their transparency, right? And while I was over there we had to make a annual report to the Philippine government, and in the statement we had to, you know, say, hey, how much money was used for this? 100%. That's how much was used for it, and we posted that on the website. So, you know, it's proof that, you know, like if you were to say that and it not be true, your organization is immediately going to get shut down. Immediately going to get shut down, if not fined.
And then you're stigmatized no matter, you know, what
everywhere
you do
you
next.
go. You're the bad guy. Absolutely, exactly.
Deservedly.
Absolutely, for 100% sure. You know, so I just know personally that these guys at Fight Hunger with Hunger, they put their money towards these children. I know that for a fact. They're very adamant about that, and Joe is so on point with that. Every peso goes to
FightHungerWithHungerCorp.org. And what was the
FHWH?
That'll get you there too.
That'll get you there as well. There's a donate page there. It's the easiest way for them to receive their donations. If anybody finds it in their heart to like to put some money towards that, all donations are 100% tax deductible. So you will get that returned on your taxes as well. So I fell in love with this organization because of that, right? So now so it's in the summertime. I'm getting my chops up with these other organizations, and I had also done my own feedings. There's a woman out there named Betsy, and Betsy's a minister, and she's just like, she's an angel on earth. And what she does is she helps. Maybe she helps more areas, but the area that I am familiar with that I worked with her extensively was an area called Bacoor Cavite. And every Sunday, I'd put up some money, and we would feed the children in that community. And I probably did that for about 2 months, you know, just to like really get an idea and like really kind of like, you know, see how the mechanics of these areas work and stuff like that. And how it works is like, you know, you have these slum areas. And if you were interested in the mechanics of it, in these massive slum areas, there's one woman who's considered a mother leader. And the mother leader is the point person. So, like, if
it's a matriarchal society,
yes, well, for somewhat, and for all intents and purposes, yes, you know. So, if you wanted to say you just happened to be over in the Philippines and you wanted to, like, you know, take $40 and feed a couple hundred kids, you know, you would want to contact the mother leader in this community, and the mother leader would be able to organize. And there's some common hall space, and it's just a blown-out area, and hopefully they have their own cooking utensils. I was able to supply them with their own for future use, so they could have. So anybody just had to come in with the food. They prepare it, bring the kids over and just and have a feeding, and it was a really beautiful thing. You fall in love with these kids, I fell in love with them, and and one of the cool things was it's like, they speak Tagalog, I speak English, and they were not really big on English, but everybody knows what a high five is, right? So every time I go into these communities, I didn't know what to tell them, so it's just a high five, and like they loved it so much. I have literally probably like 80 kids around me just wanting to high five me.
There's pictures and YouTube videos of this.
Yes.
Why don't you tell people where they can see that?
You can go see that on my YouTube page at, I don't know.
For instance, if someone wants to subscribe to my YouTube channel, they would just search in YouTube J. Iannuzzi or Park City Productions 06604, and then they can subscribe there. For you, it appears that the easiest way to do this is to put in SAX, SAX DMA, and then that'll bring you right to this. And I'm looking right here, letter of appreciation. What is that?
It's a Mirosol Petropoulos. Mirosol was my partner out there, my main interpreter. She was instrumental in making everything happen for the next segment that I was going to tell you about, which was with this creation of the Hood program. Now, Fight Hunger with Hunger, they already had, remember our demographic that we're trying to hit is children ages 2 to 6, right? Now, they were taking care of these children in this particular community, ages 5 and 6, at their grade school. Also donations up until this point went to bringing food to this school, where the school would cook food and feed these children every day. Because the school, they were on site in one area. They feed them every day, going on their third consecutive year now. But then whenever I was out there, I was like, well, listen, what are we going to do about the kids 2, 3, and 4? And that's whenever I came up with an idea for the Hood program. So what I had to do was the magistrate in these areas, they don't call him the magistrate over there. They call him the barangay captain, right? And so we had to get in front of the barangay captain and explain the case, explain to him what we wanted to do, and that they have taken a census on everybody in their community. So we knew that they had a list of children who were suffering from malnutrition and severe malnutrition. So I asked him, can you please give me a list of the children that suffer from severe malnutrition? And it's not their top priority, but they put their. It took a while. It took a while to get this list from them, and I had a lot of volunteers over there to help us. Because even though the barangay captain speaks English, you don't want anything misinterpreted.
And let's face it, you're not Filipino.
Not Filipino, and that's a big problem. And if they don't see a Filipino involved, they're not going to take you seriously. They see this white American coming over here trying to flex and trying to we're going to do that. They're not interested. Not trying to feed your ego, because a lot of people, they come off in that fashion and stuff like that. So, Mirosol was one of the most vital volunteers that we had, and it was weeks. It was day after day, just going and talking to the captain until we finally got this list. And actually, on that YouTube channel, you can see there's a 5-part video series that I created on the creation of the Hood program, from the brief explanation of it, the donation page, to getting the list. And actually, the next part, which was very, very interesting, was going into these communities, into the slum, to find 5 children. It's like finding 5 needles in a haystack. Because you see the outside of these communities, and the first community that we hit was Cosme Compound, which is where the little girl Akeisha was from, that started this whole
Who
thing.
didn't make it.
Yeah. Right on. And the second was the St. Louis Compound. So if you go, you can see us. There's one entrance to these to these slum areas. You just don't realize how large they are whenever you get in there. And so what we had to do, we had to employ the services Ate Nene. Ate is the respectful term for ma'am. So Ate Nene was the mother leader for the St. Louis compound. She was a mother leader of 286 children. So she kind of had the best idea where we might be able to find these people. So myself, Ate Nene, and Mirosol, we went into the St. Louis compound, and took us 3.5 hours to find 5 children. There's no street signs. There's no markings. There's no way. It's going door to door. Do you know where da-da-da is? Oh, over here? Okay, go here. We go to the Sorry store. That's like the closest, maybe like a bodega in New York City, Do you know where this person is? And you can see us in the videos going door to door until we find these children, And then it's like, listen, we got your list off of a barangay captain. We understand your children are suffering from malnutrition. We want to enter you into our Hood program, which is going to feed your child every day to bring them out of malnutrition.
So again, it's YouTube, SAX DMA, subscribe, watch these videos. You can get a visual of what you're hearing now from our friend Sax. And I guess before I let you go, what would be an attainable, what's a realistic goal that you will say this was worth it all in the next, I don't know, year or two? And I understand that this is a much grander vision. I mean, we're looking way farther into the future, but it just in the near term, what is a realistic goal, and how can our listeners help?
Bringing any of these children out of the disease that is malnutrition is just the most incredible, most beautiful thing I think in the world. You know, and it's just like require a minimal donation because the dollar is so strong over there. It goes so far. It's and you can feed. I don't offhand know the statistics, but I think for like $20 you can feed a kid for like 3 weeks every day. You know, it's just ridiculous, and that would be a dream come true right there. To see these children, and for this program to expand into other areas, because we have this. It's called Talon Trace, as in number 3. That's just where the headquarters is located. And so what we would like to do is expand this into Talon 2, and then into 1, into other areas of Las Piñas, and then eventually Metro Manila. So that's the goal.
And once you succeed, I'm sure you seem like the kind of guy who's got a lot of irons in the fire. Are there other projects that you want to focus on?
Well, now that I'm back over here in America, I'd like to spread as much awareness as possible for this program here. But at the same time, I just can't like come away from something like that and go back to a regular job. It really instills the motivation and the inspiration to help people, right? But over here, what I've done is I've created my own company. It's called Motivational Consultation, and we specialize in health and fitness. And what I'm doing is I'm targeting business professionals. I get it. You've spent the last 20, 30, 40 years dedicated to your career, and you've made a little bit of money for your family, maybe for your future generations, but you just haven't neglected your health, And it's starting to set in, You're kind of worried that you might not have enough energy to play with your children or maybe walk.
Sax, I got a 1-month-old, and I'm feeling a little doughy in the midsection, and it's scary.
Yes.
How fast you can undo, whatever discipline you had been doing beforehand.
Absolutely.
So this is a very important service that you're looking to provide.
I mean, it's people's lives. It's your life. I mean, you can't not neglect your health, And even though, you have maybe possibly reversed the effects of all the health that you've done up until now, it's possible to get it back, And, for people, those who might be like, just a little like uncomfortable, like trying to find a loved one, or just maybe they just want enough energy for their grandchildren. What I do is I've curated a program. I will curate a workout regime for you. There's only one way to improve the quality of your life, and that's to do something like this, And I know it's in the back of everybody's mind, and it's just a matter of pulling the trigger, But, the thing is, you might not, you think about working out, and you're like, maybe weightlifting isn't for me. It doesn't matter. I've got facilities, a plethora of facilities, from like martial arts, one-on-one personal training, underwater cycle classes, surfing classes. There's so many ways to get in shape. I got you just get in touch with me. You fill out a questionnaire. We'll discuss, your goals and your ambitions, your likes and your dislikes as far as food. And I'm going to curate a 3-month program for you, right? In addition to that, if you want to get in shape, you can work out as much as you want. Diet is 70% of everything. I have 2 dietitians on deck. Both are successful in their own right in weight losing.
I just gave you candy, Sax.
I can cheat, bro. I'm in the gym 6 days a week.
I've shame on me, I guess. But no, I understand what you're saying.
We have 2 dietitians, and they're going to ask you. They're going to find out what you like, what cuisines you like, what foods don't you like, and they're going to create a menu for you that you're going to like. It's going to be healthy. And the biggest problem with this is the motivation. I'm also a licensed life coach, and what comes with the program as well is you're going to have me as a life coach for motivation. So every 3 or 4 days, I'm going to keep you on track. I'm going to see how everything's working out for you. I'm going to talk to you every day, or every 3 or 4 days, and remind you of why you started this.
Time goes so fast. I really appreciate you reminding listeners that start the day. Take care of yourself. You have the ability to take care of others. And that's kind of the circle of life, isn't it?
It sure is. It certainly is, John. Absolutely.
Anything you want to add before we let you go? And then we'll have you back for an update. And then also I want to introduce you to some people who are like-minded in that holistic way of living.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anybody that was interested in the motivational consultation course, you can reach out to me at my website. That's saxdma.com, saxdma.com. Sign up for a free consultation, and we'll see what we could do.
And
Absolutely.
if you're listening and watching on YouTube, just drop down in the comment box, and I'll have links to all of this and some pictures as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. I really
My
appreciate
pleasure.
you.